Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Azure Centric Podcast on our Azure Weekly Updates. My name is Marcos Nogueira, and with me I have my best friend Andrew Lowes. How are you, Andrew?
I'm amazing.
You are amazing,
Thanks.
right? We had a very good weekend, or we are having a very good weekend. The sun is blessing, the temperature is rising, and oh my god, it feels like, at least in Alberta, that we are melting. I'm not complaining, I'm just mentioning. Okay?
Somewhere in the middle would be really good,
Yeah,
right? Because we get the very chilly days and then we have some very hot days. But that's okay. Like you, I'm not complaining. I'm just happy that it's not raining and we can be outside and go and do all of the things.
absolutely.
And of course, we had the amazing news this past week that we get to have a couple of people over as long as they are outside, I think it is.
Yes.
Um,
We are on
yeah,
stage two.
so things are getting better.
Yes.
It's
It
wonderful.
is wonderful. It's starting to get a little bit of what we call the normal life, that we
Hmm.
we take it for granted, and it's another humble moment in our lives that we take for granted, and we shouldn't. And it's coming for appreciation even more. But yes, all the
Absolutely.
numbers are getting higher with the vaccination, which is good. We started to see people a little bit more happier, I have to say, and what is important. But let's start this
But
by
so, like all of the things in our personal life, Azure has been well watered and has been growing.
yes.
So there was lots of updates this week,
It
right?
was. It was a lot of updates this week, and it's very curious because 2 weeks ago uh, we had the build, right? That we have an
Yeah, there was
insane
quite a lot.
amount of
Yeah.
updates, and the week after we had a very short period or a short number of updates, which allow us to go a little bit deeper. And the feedback was amazing regarding that particular
Hmm.
episode. And this week we have a fair amount of updates again, which is very good because it's not far away again, like 2 weeks ago that we had built, right? So it shows that they are not stopping, and a lot of those updates, although didn't make the cut for this week, it was around the database area, right?
It was a database week for sure. There was a
Absolutely.
lot of Postgre and
Yeah,
MySQL updates this week,
absolutely.
and it was really interesting. We even kind of hummed and hawed a bit. We were trying to decide should we leave a couple in. There's so many because there was a lot of advancements. So if you're working in and around data, or you're working with especially open source database formats, go and check out the Azure Updates website, their blog there. And there's a lot of really, really cool updates, especially this past week, that will be very relevant
Yeah,
for
yeah,
them.
absolutely.
But I think our theme is a little bit generic again, but I'm going to say it's General Availability Week.
It is. Is the GA week. Is the GA week.
It is.
And with that we want to start, in this case, as usually, to thank to you that you are, in this case, listen to this podcast. If you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to smash that like button or the dislike button. Either one works for us. we prefer
What's not to love?
we prefer the like button, as you can imagine, right? But if you have something to say, either you like or don't, if you like my color of my shirt, or you prefer like Andrew's color of shirt, or if you like more like the haircut of Andrew's and not mine, just let us know.
I think it's about the same, isn't it? Our hair.
It is. It's like the short, almost nothing, at least for me.
It's almost nothing, but I'm going to still argue there's
Yeah,
something.
exactly, exactly. We cut it to just kind of, uh not to enhance what we're missing, but yeah, to kind of have some color at our heads, basically.
So as usual, right on topic. This past few days, somebody did ask me about my haircut, and it made me think a little bit. And I said, "Gosh, you know what? I've been cutting my hair like this for almost 30 years."
Wow.
And I was like, I had to think about it for a moment. I was like, "Oh, I actually didn't realize that." It's been a very long. It's been a long time since I've had long hair. That's one thing for
But
sure. So,
the question that everyone wants to hear is, what is long hair? It's like 1 inch, two
oh,
inch.
so long hair is if I have to use a brush.
Oh,
That's what I think long hair is now.
really?
Now, if you asked teenager
Yeah.
me, I had beautiful long hair. It was like halfway down my back. I was a little bit of a hippie, maybe. So there you go. A little bit of sharing to start us off this
Exactly.
week.
I have to say that during my teenager times, I had long hair as well because it was apparently the fashion at that time. But was
It was
not
a style at the
man
time.
was not as a middle of the back. It wasn't probably to my shoulders. But yes, too much work, and we learned
Mhm.
very simple that it's keep it simple. That's why I like, and it's way less uh, maintenance.
Absolutely. Yeah,
It's
you'd
like
be surprised how little shampoo you don't
is
need when you're that
exactly,
going.
and it's like automation. You don't need to be awake to take your bath and
Wet,
to just wet
dry.
and done, and we are good golden. Okay, we already deviate too much. Well, I think we start.
I think that we should start the episode
Yeah,
before we
yeah,
get
yeah.
way off here.
Let's roll, and then let's come back with updates. So welcome back. Let's dive into the first um, update, so we cannot deviate anymore from this episode. And the first update, as the team, like Andrew said, the general availability team is the general availability of ExpressRoute global reach price reduction. What a way to start our podcast, our episode of this season, with some savings in our pockets.
Absolutely. There's been a few price reductions kind of coming week over week, kind of slowly trickling down. And this one is interesting, released June 4, with prices backdated to June 1 of this year, 2021, just for reference in case we decide to listen back in like 5 years or something. But yeah, so global reach is a really interesting technology, right? So it's like an interconnecting technology, the ability to connect two express routes. So if you have point A and point B connected with an express route, and point C and point D, and two of those are in Azure, then you can connect B and D together in Azure using a global reach to create an interconnected network. And because it is a connection, data egress, data transport charges may apply. In some cases, it's interesting because some data transit does have a charge and some does
Yeah.
not. So I don't pretend to understand it. I always 100% of the time always refer back to the charts on the Azure price list and just use Bing, search it. I think it's like azure.com/pricing or something like that. But it will give you a very good list that is accurate of what the data transit charges are, gateways, and all those
Yeah.
things like that. So a 50% decrease in the data transfer price on ExpressRoute Global Reach, that's
It's
huge.
huge.
That's really
And
huge.
it's huge, and again, it's taking advantage of these, like you said and explained really well. The using the express route. So the ExpressRoute, you can use that connection, and there is a huge advantage between using ExpressRoute and VPN, because on the VPN side of it, you still have those traffic charges, although it's
Yeah.
not as reliable, and you are through the internet connecting. So basically, you are creating a tunnel between those sites as well, between those sites on prem and in this case Azure. ExpressRoute, you have a
Yeah.
MPLS link dedicated to that. So you have low latency. You can increase the security of that because now you are working with the peering as well. Although,
That's right. And you can further wrap it as well. There's different technologies, of
absolutely,
course, right?
absolutely.
I like global reach much better over VPN, and I just want to talk about that for a moment because when we use VPN, we have to scale up those gateways quite a lot to get the same potential bandwidth from a global reach, which is going to be Azure Backbone with a minimum of 10 gigabit, and in some cases it might be 100 gigabit, depending on the data centers and what it's transiting, right? So there can be some pretty big data throughput with global reach versus
Yes,
VPN. Um, but it is interesting because I think Microsoft is really emphasizing the fact, or not emphasizing, reinforcing the fact that a lot of organizations are now heavily interconnected in their virtual networks, right?
absolutely. And it's not only that; it's like the 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 express route give you more resilience, right, and more and more throughout throughput and low latency in certain cases. I have to say, because I've been on customers that they did build their infrastructure really well, and one of their positioning, they were using for their VPN the point of presence. So one of them to be in Chicago, for example, that we talk a lot already on these podcasts. Um, that is one of the point of the presence for the internet, and during all of those tests and everything else, it was one of the few that it was not making any sense to recommend ExpressRoute, for example, which is really interesting because the way that they were doing VPN and all of that, right? It was way faster and with low latency because of that. So it's interesting to see all of these working on the express route for the price that I see. And this is another thing that I want to just kind of make sure that everyone understand those prices that you see on the blog of the reduction is the Microsoft price, because you have two
Mhm.
prices for the express route. You have the price of the link that you have their partners, right? Could be any network partner that you have, right? Depending on your location. And visit again the Azure.com website to know which partner is on your region. But then is the price that you have regarding data transfer or using then bandwidth. So that is different.
Yeah.
So it's not like, because I was seeing that and I always think, oh, like what, $50 to have a express
Oh
route,
yeah, but
but then you have to
yeah,
add
but
on that the MPLS circuits. Okay.
exactly, right? It's like I'm gonna sound like a cell phone commercial, but carrier charges may apply. It's good.
Exactly. Yes.
I didn't know you were gonna take a drink. I'm sorry.
I almost spit on live over my coffee over here.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, there's too much daylight in Alberta
Yeah,
right now,
absolutely,
folks.
absolutely, my friend. But we did kind of say that through the summer, going to the summer, is going to be very complicated to maintain the level on this podcast. We did announce that
It
before.
is. Yes, I do have a reputation for perhaps having a bit of a funny bone once in a while.
Absolutely. So the next one is another GA, right? Azure Backup, for Azure Backup, upgrade to TLS 1.2 or above for secure Mars, that is the Microsoft Azure Recovery Service Agent
Mhm.
backups by September 1, 2021. This is a huge security improvement. And what I like
It's
about this is the older version of TLS, right? The transport layer security of version 1 and 1.1 will no longer be supported. But what I like about this is in order to continue using the Azure Backup without an interruption, you need to make sure that you are enabled the TLS 1.2 or above. Okay,
mhm.
that is the only caveat on this. There is the steps on. There is a link for the steps on documented. Okay, if you want to follow, but you need to enable. So if you are not enabled this, please do so because September 1st will come very soon.
It will, yeah. So typically, IT kind of slows down a bit in the
Yeah.
summer. That is not the case so far this year. Things are shaping up to stay very,
Yeah.
very busy. And whatever that reason is, kind of some post COVID stuff going on, projects trying to catch up, especially in security areas. There's a big emphasis and a lot of support for kind of security revisions right now. And I think that this is a big part of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of companies, like a lot of our customers, are using Azure Backup in a distributed way. And it's part of a very healthy and very robust business continuity and disaster recovery plan. It's a very flexible tool, but like you say, we have to enable. So we have to go in, we have to check a box, we have to make a couple of minor changes and just save it. But we also have to make sure that we're staying relatively up to date. So I just want to talk about that for a brief moment because the one thing that you and I always remind all of our viewers and listeners about is when we update anything from Azure Portal Backup Site Recovery, you start at the portal and work your way down. So, portal and then your collector systems, your servers, then your agents underneath that. Very important to do it in that order and very important to make your saves in that order as well.
Absolutely.
So everything continues to work. But you're right, September 1 is going to come up
Yes.
very fast, which makes me a little bit sad actually because it's just June.
True, but the thing is, what I like about all of this is that they are making this TLS in this case evolution uh, by default without removing any dependency of the older versions. And I think this
That's
is
right.
critical because we know that Microsoft a lot of time you have a dependency of older versions. So you need to enable, for example, if you are on TLS 1.0 and you want to move to 1.2, for example, I'm not saying that that is the case, but we see that you need to move for TLS 1.1 and then moving to a TLS 1.2 or the above, right? In this case, there is no dependency of older version. So you can go
Yeah.
directly to 1.2 or above without the dependency of that. The only thing you need to make sure is remember September 1st, 2021, you need to move on from the TLS 1.0 and 1.1. Okay. And by the way, you should
Yeah,
not even
absolutely.
use that right now because it's not even
It's not
it's not
safe.
safe anymore. So yes, so I like these pushes to be very honest from Microsoft because it help us helping our customers right to achieving a better security environment because usually we are driving by those dates. Until then, we feel a little bit accommodate, right? And we've been that on different situations. Usually, the end of support of different services and servers and whatever it is products, it's what drives us to move on. Otherwise, if we don't have that, I'm sure that we still have NT4 around.
Oh gosh. Yeah. So yeah, I think we all have a lot of customers that are still wrestling with old operating systems. I don't want to get into it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The next one, it's a very nice one, I have to say. General availability
Mhm.
of update in policy compliance for resource type policies. So this starting in June 16, okay,
Mhm.
policies where resource type is only on evaluation criteria, like examples, the allowed resource types or disabled resource types, will not have compliant resource store in the compliance records. So this is directly from the horse mouth, using your words, right? That
Yep.
it's what he says. They announced this week, saying that next week they will not be, they will not have compliant on the store. Really important, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is one of those ones. Yeah, we both really enjoy policy, Azure policy, because it allows us easily to report on the current status. But there is some kind of catches when we talk about those things, right?
Yes.
So, in the case of evaluation only, an evaluation policy means that we're only looking at compliance. An enforcement policy means that we're making a change, we're enforcing something, right? So imagine if this was like a parking ticket and the evaluation is just somebody looking at the car saying, yeah, that's just not a good thing. We shouldn't do this, but I'll tell someone about this so that we can fix it.
Usually, I
The
like to say that that's an audit mode. It's what I like to
Yes,
explain because it's easier to understand the audit part of it. It's like we are analyzing, we are getting the knowledge, but we are not doing anything. It we are in audit
exactly.
mode. I like it more than evaluation, because evaluation have another uh, connections, right, to another types of interpretation. But when we introduce the audit on the Azure policy, at least for my opinion, um, everyone understand what we're talking about. Because audit, you are just make sure that you are regarding something that should be the baseline, that is the policy. We want to know what deviates from that policy, for example, and that the audit is the part that we like it, because the output of any audit in our life is what is a deviation between what is um, allowed in this case, right? Just sorry to interrupt you.
Exactly. Oh no, it's quite all right. So a little bit into this update, there is actually a very good explanation of what this means. So if there are no non-compliant resources, in other words, everything is compliant, compliance reporting will show 100%
Okay,
compliance. So great, you get the green check mark
absolutely.
here. However, if you have one or more non-compliant resources, you will have 0% compliance. So it's a little bit unusual, I think,
Yeah,
in that sense, right? Because it's kind of it's like a boolean, right? It's that you're either compliant or you're not. It's 0 or 100. Um,
it's binary.
it is. It is. It is. It's literally binary,
Yeah,
right? Yeah. So when you aggregate this with other policies, and this is what they talk about here, this logic would provide more accurate assessment of the overall environment. I'm not sure I agree with that. However, I will evaluate the evaluation policy. Sorry, I couldn't resist. I will actually take a look at this in my own testing tenant, because this is interesting. I do have a lot of clients, as do you, that struggle, I think, understanding the compliance reports from policy sometimes, because things like what we just talked about, right? Enforcement versus audit. It's language, and it does get confusing. So it is good to just kind of just slow it down and take a bit of a look and kind of go through it with the customer together to make sure that everyone understands how that's
yeah,
working. Because in this case, imagine you have 10 resources being evaluated, one of them is out of compliance, but your report shows 0% compliance now. when in fact you're 90% compliant.
Yeah.
So I want to understand what they're talking about a bit better in this article. So I'm going to go hands on. So there you go. You can have my book report on that one next week.
Please give me your audit of this policy that you are evaluating.
The audit of the evaluation policy.
Yes.
Just to avoid any confusion. We're so sorry, folks.
Yes. If we confuse more that at the beginning of the introduction of this update, let us know. We can always repeat it and we can always have a one-to-one conversation. Or yeah.
Well, I think that kind of gives us a bit of an opening, to be honest. And I think I would love to see a conversation. So, let us know your thoughts in the YouTube channel or on Twitter with at Azure Centric. Let us know what you think about
Absolutely.
that because these Azure policies are very powerful. And like we were saying, auditing versus enforcing kind of two different paths. But let us know how you're using it. Let us know how this change works for you.
Absolutely.
And we'll do our very best to get back to everybody. I promise. We'll do our best.
Absolutely. Let's move to the next one. That is the in preview, so it's not in GA. And by preview, we mean that you should not use this in production. Of the Azure Migrate private endpoint support availability in public preview. So this is one of the things that I was expecting for a long time. And oh my God, what I can say about this is having the ability of, instead of going through the internet, right? When you already have a site-to-site VPN or an ExpressRoute, why in the name of God do I need to go to the internet to migrate my servers from on-prem to the cloud? And then you may ask, but on ExpressRoute, for example, we can have, right, the public peering. Yes, but it's still a public peering. It's still a public service.
Still goes to public internet, public networks.
It goes. So be able to have everything inside, especially now that we are going on the confidentiality of servers, and everything that Azure is building regarding the protection. Yeah, we can use this. We can do this discovery access because Azure Migrate is not only for servers, it's for databases, it's for a lot of other things that just servers. So be able to use this on the private endpoint means that I will have an IP that is within my connection, private IP within my network. Okay, so it's routable inside of my network. I don't need to go anywhere else. It's huge, I have to say.
Absolutely. We've talked about quite a few kind of routing changes, and there's been some different services releasing.
Absolutely.
A lot of them are around, let's just say, keeping traffic inside your own tenant. I want to oversimplify some of those changes because I think it's important, like you said, to emphasize how big this security improvement is. So the difference is no matter what we did, like you were saying, even with public peering, that it would still go public, right? So it would be on public internet. And while the risk is low, it's encrypted, it is still a physical risk.
Yes.
And Azure Migrate is such a great tool that, as you know, it's kind of near and dear because it was my first Azure tool that I really very deep dive, got hands on with. And it's an excellent tool for all of our users, listeners, people that are brand new to Azure. This is the thing. Go play with this on Microsoft Learn because you will be so impressed with what you can actually do Like you have a very good feeling of accomplishment being able to migrate data resources, not just servers, right? Like you were saying.
Yeah.
And it's a really great idea. I'm sorry, I get excited
No, no,
about
you are
Azure
absolutely
Migrate.
right. Although I think we need to mention one thing, that it's not about only migrate the servers over a private network. Is the process of using migrate, if you step a little bit back, is you starting with discovery. So to
Mhm.
discovery, and if we're going on that path, we're going with the higher, in this case, high privilege accounts to discover everything, to discover all the
Yes,
services. So we are, and that discovery is coming directly from Azure. It's not on prem. So you are starting to discover from Azure. The reporting back when you assess and everything else is on Azure. So there is a lot of um, is there is a lot of information going back and forth, right? Doing this
absolutely.
through the internet, and we know that's encrypted, but we can always have some data exfiltration risks associated by that because we are using the public internet. It's HTTPS traffic, we know that, and everything else, but there are always a risk of this data exfiltration. And you are not with this, we are not transverse anymore the public endpoints. So we can use everything within the part of the discovery, the part when you are starting to assess, especially if you are assessing this um, with the dependency agent to see where it's connecting to all of that, is tremendous, right?
It is. Yeah, and you're absolutely right because it hops, right? So it starts at Azure. In this case, it is preview, so don't deploy this in your prod network, please. It's not ready for that yet. But testing with this, it would go from Azure to the private endpoint, and then it will traverse your secure network, your ExpressRoute, your site-to-site VPN in some cases, back to on-prem, and it will inspect resources there, perform scans. You may have an agent on-prem as well that allows to hop locally,
Yes.
for example, to integrate with like vCenter,
Yeah.
right? So that you can kind of look at not just the VMs, but you're actually looking at all of the hardware too, like all of the ESXi hosts, all like it looks at the whole picture,
Yes.
which is really important because that's how Azure Migrate makes recommendations for
Absolutely.
VM sizes on the cloud side, right?
Absolutely.
But I really love what you're talking about though with keeping things more secure.
Yes.
We're not saying it is. We're just saying it's more
Yes.
secure, removing risk.
Completely moving risk, and that's the part that I like about this update, and that's why I say that why we should have this sooner than later. But I'm glad that that's coming.
It has been a
It's
little
been a
while. It's
little,
overdue.
yes, it is. I have to be honest, but it's coming, which is good. So means that Microsoft is still listen. Is something of the things that we were pushing as a professionals for them to going on that path because, and we're starting to see a lot of those, and it's good to see that they are going on that direction. Okay, it's a little bit late that we wanted because we had several projects that we want to do that, right? And it is what it is. We cannot do anything else, but it's coming. So, folks, bear with us. Just be a little bit more patient because it's in private preview, no public preview. Sorry,
Public
public
preview.
preview.
Yeah.
So means that we are very close to have these in GA. And one thing is guaranteed: we will throw a party, okay, when this become a GA, like a virtual party. Everyone is invited, and again, if you don't like the party, the money back is guaranteed.
That's a good point. Folks, we do offer a
Percent,
100% money back
yes.
guarantee on all
No,
views.
not
Absolutely.
all views. If you subscribe the channel, absolutely, we want you to have your money back guaranteed. Absolutely,
Your satisfaction is guaranteed.
absolutely. Mm,
And if not, well, we tried.
exactly. Okay, let's move to the next one. That is, we are back to the general availability. In this case, is for the enterprise scale landing zone reference implementation for AKS. Usually, we don't speak much about AKS. That is the Azure Kubernetes Service. But in this case, this is a architecture one, and it's a
Mhm.
enterprise scale landing zone. So it means that this is the baseline, this is the guides, this is our guidance as for me as an architect and Andrew as an architect as well, that we are based our architect solutions or solutions when we provide this based on the cloud adoption framework for Azure that now announce some GA, in this case for an enterprise scale, how you should implement AKS on your environment. So it's really
Absolutely.
important, guys, that you already, this is available right now, so we can start using. And I have to say that I did use this at the end of this week, and very glad that this became available because now I was able to uh, refer to these principles and guidelines of how to implement enterprise scale architecture for AKS, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and the part that I really like about this is again, we're really emphasizing proper architecture, well thought out.
Yes.
Notice I'm carefully avoiding saying the right phrase there, but we're thinking about well thought out architectural designs for landing zones, and that means that it's
Yes.
scalable and it's modular. So it's interesting. I was dealing with a client a couple of weeks ago, and they're really starting to migrate some resources now for production into their Azure tenant. And it's a very exciting time for them, right? So they're really starting to embrace their cloud journey now and really transforming their IT infrastructure. So it's very, very important. But they don't also want to buy the whole farm kind of a deal,
Yeah.
right? So they don't want to implement like a huge Azure tenant and take on the whole big thing all in one bite. So that's the really great thing about landing zone architecture is it's about encompassing all of the things that are required to provide a good, fully operational, secure tenant that is usable for production, but not putting 100% of every kind
Yes.
of a thing they might ever want in there. You can add pieces on one at a time as that organization's ready to grow.
Absolutely.
And that I'm sorry for the
No,
long-winded
no, no, no.
explanation, but
It's really good. It's absolutely spot on. What I would like as well to just even add on what I say is all of this that you are seeing, and I think this is really important, is all of these enterprise scale for Azure Kubernetes landing zone is based on Terraform. So you can use this as your code, and you have a link on this update directly to the GitHub page of Azure, or in this case of Microsoft, that you have exactly all the scripts to deploy it. And like you mentioned, Andrew, this is, you can start small or you can go on enterprise scale of having this massive environment of AKS. Even if you start small, you don't need to go like on the way that you should do it is and starting going crazy like deploying thousands of servers. No, you don't need that. Remember, this is AKS, this is scalable, this is all the things that you want to do it. This is containers. If you are not very familiar with AKS and Azure Kubernetes Service, this is a part of containerization. So you need to scale as you need, as you want, as the application is going to request it. So of course that it's not like you implementing, for example, a virtual machine scale set. right? That you are doing. This is much smaller. You can do that way differently. And I'm really passionate about AKS, as
Mhm.
probably you're starting to understand. But this will help us, especially as architects, and especially you that you are listening, to have a better understanding on how the landing zone, that is the cloud adoption framework of Azure, will help you to develop those solutions. And again, if you have any questions, just shoot us an email or leave a comment below. Whatever it is, me and Andrew, we are more than welcome to help you on that, because this is our daily job, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, this is one of the things that we're both very passionate about, and it's really I feel it's so important for organizations to get the right start
Absolutely.
when they begin this AKS journey, because it's really I don't want to get yeah. So we're going to end up in a rabbit hole here, but it is part of a good foundation of technology for an organization, and treat it as such. Give it some attention, a little bit of TLC, right? So it does take some time to design it, and just take a breath, slow your journey down for a moment. It doesn't mean stop; it just means take a breath, and then build that proper foundation and move forwards. A really scalable AKS solution is actually, well, it's amazing, because when
Absolutely.
you set everything, it just goes, and you have to give it very little
It's
attention,
beautiful. It's magical. It's like
right?
you are almost like on
So
Disney
you
World.
got me addicted with that crazy CI/CD pipeline that you, that you built,
Yeah.
and I haven't admitted this to you yet, but I've actually kind of dove in myself, of course, um, and I've been also using it, and I've been deploying it at a couple of customers already, and it's really solid. It's a foundational
Absolutely.
technology now on my list, my short list. Uh,
Absolutely.
yeah, there's storage accounts, there's Azure Migrate, and AKS. That's it. Nothing else is foundational.
Okay.
I could barely get that one
Uh,
out. I thought you might get mad.
no, not at all, not at all. The next one, I have to say, it's pretty cool, although it's still in public preview, but is the alerts-based smart detection for application insights. So we already talked
Mhm.
about application insights. Application insights is the way that Azure monitors your application. It goes deeply to understand what your application it's doing, where it's connecting, and starting to get all of those alerts for you. The alert based smart detection is the way that you can increase and you can have the application insights automatically warns you of potential performance failure anomalies on your application. So it helps you to be proactive than to be reactive, which is the golden of any type of monitoring. Because on a monitoring on a very
Absolutely.
legacy way, you are constantly being reactive. The way that you want to do your monitoring is to try to predict or try to tell you when it's going to fail. That is the secret of a good monitoring solution.
It is absolutely, and for a long time, in IT in general, I want to say, we've had to kind of create this logic
Yep,
manually, whether it be some form of scripting, or if the tool has some kind of a your monitoring tool, that is, has some sort of a built-in logic that you can utilize with it. This has been a bit trickier though, because this one is more about, like, let's say you have kind of a benign database error that gets raised in App Insights occasionally, like, hey, this query took 10 milliseconds instead of the 3 that it usually takes. If you have a marked increase, like you get 5 of those and you usually have one, this would then trigger a detection at the top level and say, hey, we're seeing an increase in this alert, and we want you to know about it. So, like you're saying, this is the kind of the golden ticket when it comes to monitoring,
Absolutely.
right? Because now we know that the database is taking 10 milliseconds instead of 3. We can get out in front of that now, and the service desk or the SOC or whoever's monitoring can get the right people involved and
Absolutely.
go in and take a look at that. Amazing. I
Amazing.
like This is the kind of stuff that we're here for, right?
Absolutely.
Because I know it's only in preview, but I actually want to. Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. I think yeah. Okay. I'm gonna have a demo for you.
Absolutely.
We'll do
And
we'll
and
do
and the good
yeah,
thing
we'll do a
about this,
demo.
it's what I explain in this case to my customers is if you look to the monitoring, right? And why you should use this. This you starting with the monitoring that you have a trigger and you have an alert. A very dummy one, like goes after that and generates an alert for you. No one wants to do that because then you need to look at those alerts and you need to say, okay, I had the spike. Okay. So spikes are okay to have on our application, right? What is not normal is if the spike takes too long to come back to a normal value or to inside of your baseline. Okay. That's the part
Exactly.
that you want to identify that. And then if you remember this, you started to have above those um, like what's called metric alerts, right? You have the dynamic alerts.
Mhm.
So now you have the conjugation of those triggers with the space in time, with the condition of space in time, and the number of times that happen. So now you can say that, for example, the CPU, for example, it goes above 80%. But I want, if that happens on this 3 times, for example, on the space of 10 minutes, I want to be alerted because that could trigger me something that is going to happen on my application to do that. So those are the dynamic ones. These guys, right, the smart ones, is a little bit different. It's like you mentioned. I'm always being on the 3 milliseconds, for example, of that query. Okay. So I'm going deeper. And now the same query that I've been, in this case, monitoring before, that is taking 3 milliseconds, it doesn't go behind my baseline, but now suddenly it's starting to have 7 milliseconds, 10 milliseconds. This smart detection applied for the application insights knows that if that query takes from 3 milliseconds to 10 milliseconds, it's an increase of 7 milliseconds, will on the cascade mode, right, on the application, will trigger down the road, for example, some kind of errors of timeout. Because if that query is the, in this case, the outcome for the next query of the next, in this case, execution of code, now you are starting to delay your code and you're starting to have problems. So that's why this smart detection, it's really interesting on your application inside, because you are, in my point of view, they don't say over here, but it's look like they are integrating the AI, right, into monitoring to make this way better for us, getting less alerts so we cannot be spam by alerts, and get
Yeah.
more
So
type of alert rules that they are more refined and really give us what
exactly.
we need to look at.
Indeed. So two things on my mind, and I'm gonna. Can you flip back to the article, um, just while I'm chatting here for a
Absolutely.
moment? So I'm going to have you do something. You're going to love this. So, one, yes, this is the application of machine learning, right? Because it's going to learn what's normal for our App Insights instance when it's taking a look at those applications, right? And then alert on what's different. Or, like you were saying, I really loved what you said about it's normal for an application to spike. Don't overreact. That's not what we're concerned with. We want to monitor those spikes, And when it takes too long to come back down, we should know about it because maybe we need to scale
Yeah,
things, right? And maybe we don't have the right resources allocated for
absolutely.
that, for example. So that's the kind of thing. So that's real life machine learning and Microsoft AI helping us right there, and it's awesome. Good sir, I'm doing my public service for the week here. The first link that says let's learn more at application insights in that first paragraph, can we go to the destination for that? And Microsoft, I'm still waiting for that new updated Azure swag. I'm running out of cool t-shirts.
I have page not found.
Exactly.
Is that you want to show?
It was,
Okay.
yes. I feel much better now.
Okay.
Never ceases to amaze me. There's always one, but I really like when we find them, and I do take a little bit of guilty pleasure in that.
Okay. No worries about that. But continuing talking about monitoring, another public preview. This one is on the Syslog event collection from Azure Monitor Agent for Linux distros. This is another one that is important, and this for us, it goes directly to our hearts. Why is that? Because usually these syslog collecting events goes to Azure Sentinel.
Exactly.
So yes, and
Exactly.
the thing is, I was. This is so funny because I was in this case talking to a customer of mine on Friday, last Friday in this case, that we were talking about that yes, some of those connections that they are already published on the docs.microsoft.com regarding what is the standard connections of Sentinel. It doesn't mean that you can always do that. You can always revert back to these syslogs, right? You can
Mhm.
always go back to syslogs to build the custom one. It's not optimal. Yes, we know that because there is a lot of customization around this. But as we spoke over here, the syslog event connection, in this case for Linux distros, it's really important because now you have a new agent, the Azure Monitor Agents, and the data collection rules to improve key areas of the data collection from VMs, including granular and flexible configuration. Like, for example, the
Yes.
collect of subset of VMs in a single workspace. Okay. For example, collect at once, send, and both log analytics to Azure Metrics, send multiple workspace, which is important because that's the part that in this case it will be home. It's more like the multi-homed version for Linux that we have on Windows,
Hmm.
right? And the data filtration of the source for either the Windows and Linux VMs. So it's really cool to have all of this on the VMs. Um,
Yeah, this is amazing because last year I did have a customer that had some Unix systems, Linux systems, processing confidential data. So what we did is we set up a syslog collector that was basically like a log event proxy, kind of an idea, right? So they didn't want to have any external access, but they'd approved like a subset of the logs, different events that they wanted to monitor and that we were allowed to monitor with Sentinel at that time, and they used that way to get around it. This kind of takes care of it right at source, right? So instead of having to put a bunch of syslog forwarders in and then create an aggregation server and uploading, now we can do it like you were saying, the same way we have been doing for quite a while with Windows servers, especially cloud-based, right? Because we can install the agent very easily, and we get to do the filtration at the source
Absolutely.
versus sending all of those Linux logs to the Syslog aggregation server, then filtering and then uploading from there. So now you can restrict data at source. And I feel like this is going to be a big improvement for many, many clients.
Absolutely. Because you don't have to do a lot of power in this case on a six log server or the syslog server, right? You can do that on in this case at the collector side of it, on the VM side of it, to not sending those logs. So you are transferring less data, you are reducing in this case all the data that you need to basically filtering and deal with, and it's going to be a quicker way to upload those logs into the cloud. Absolutely,
Absolutely.
absolutely,
Yep. Better control of the data leaving the server. And I think everyone's going to like
absolutely.
that.
Okay, it's like the next one, the general availability of confidential computing price reduction on the DCSV2 virtual machines. So another price reduction on this episode, the second one, and in this case,
Two
two
for
for
one.
one, exactly. In this case, it's not as much as the first one. It's only 35%, 37%, but it's
Mhm.
a huge reduction. It's almost like more than a
It
third,
is.
right? On reduction of the price
Yep.
for the confidential computing. So we've been announcing a lot of those increase um, VM sizes on the confidential computing, and now for the first time we are announcing in this case, or they are announcing a reduction of those sizes,
Yes.
in this case that we announce, of those prices. Not the reduction of the sizes, but the reduction of the prices starting,
The
yes,
prices. Yeah.
in June 1st. So it
Yep.
was
Another one backdated for better
exactly.
savings.
So it's really important to see how is this going forward, and I think this is going to enable a lot of another type of service, another type of migrations that we will starting to see with confidential computing. This associated with the private link of Azure Migrate, it's
Mm.
going to be
Yeah, because this really covers sensitive and regulated
absolutely
information that you may deal with in your organization. Very typically medical or scientific research, and a lot of that data is highly regulated, right? And confidential computing offers a way to have, and I'm going to mess up the words here, but it's a secure computing environment, and it allows you to use like trusted launch and basically like virtual TPM, except now much more expansive, right? So a lot of what's the word I'm looking for, Marcos? I can't think of this for some reason. The guaranteed secure environment.
yes, security overall that
Yeah, I forgive me. I just can't remember what it is with the confidential VMs and all that.
no,
I
but
can't
it
think
is
of the
because
word now.
if you think about this, the only secure way to not transfer those, and depending on the organization that we're talking about, you have is to just doing an offline migration. So basically, acquire
Yes,
the import export service from Azure. Um, Basically, come with the appliance that you can transfer those, and then sending back directly with highly secure way to just transport those into the Azure data center, and then they will import on that side, and then they will do the delta. But that migration can take a lot of time depending on the way that you are doing, right? Um, with
absolutely.
associated with that, now with the private link, it's going to be way easier for those type of workloads with the confidential computing to be able to move, and now they are cheaper even. So it's
Exactly.
it's
Yeah,
like in two
and
in one, like you saw, a three in one in this case, right?
Well, that actually that is true because the private endpoint is really a very important part of this recipe because it keeps the data internal to the
Absolutely.
network.
Absolutely. The next one, it's a little bit outside of our area, that is Azure IoT Edge integration with Azure Monitor is now in public preview. And the reason that we are bringing this is because I've been working with a few projects with IoT, especially with my good friend George Maya from the Crazy Tech Labs, um, and one of the things that is always we've been discussing when we doing all of these projects is how we can monitoring, how we can analyze if the solution is efficient or not, how we can see what is being transferred or not. It's been always a challenge, and right now this is available on preview, okay, public preview. So again, don't take this as a granted. Don't implement this as in production, although it's just monitoring. But remember one thing: if this becomes available GA, right, you probably need to reapply everything. The rules, it's not there. So don't use this as your set and forget, because it's not the way that you want to do it. But this gives you a lot of good things to simplify your monitoring and troubleshooting of your IoT edge devices, okay, on the public preview. So it's really cool to use this, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's like you were saying, it's really critical to have good and meaningful monitoring on all of the IoT
Yeah,
transactions and devices. And that's been one of the challenges is, a lot of those implementations we've had to create custom solutions to bridge that gap and create monitoring tools for IoT specifically.
absolutely.
But this is potentially a very, very big improvement. I haven't tested this myself. We both have a few kind of IoT devices around the house and things as well. So it's going to be interesting to see what is able to integrate nicely through Azure IoT Edge and into Azure monitoring. The alerting alone is going to be a huge
It
improvement,
is,
I think.
because a lot of the issues that we found is the amount of data that you are receiving is tremendously, and usually to analyze that, you need to go on a device, you need to start seeing the amount of data, the messages and all of that, and sometimes this will give us way more insight on what is happening with the solution, with the IoT Edge device, what is the behavior, and like we mentioned before, try to predict, because all the monitoring, all the best solution in the world, we are not saying that is with A vendor, B vendor, or C vendor, but what is the best solution in the world is the one that it will allow us to predict when it's going to fail, so we can intervene before that. And this is again one step forward to going on that. So I highly recommend you, in this case, to see either the blog post or the IoT show episode that talks about these new capabilities of the integrating the IoT Edge with Azure Monitor that is in preview, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I could not have even said that better. The Azure IoT show is pretty
Pretty amazing.
amazing, actually. Yeah, if you're kind of a closet IoT nerd, go and check it out if you haven't already, because they drop some pretty good knowledge in there, right? It's pretty
It
deep
is, it is
dive.
pretty good. Let's go to the last but not the least. Do you want to do the honors of this one?
Oh, certainly. So five, five more free services available with Azure Free Account. So we used to say up to 100 services free, and then they said over 100, And I think that we're getting closer to 120 or something like that now. I've lost count, to be perfectly honest, but it's amazing adding 5 more free services. So, what's included now in the free tier of Azure? Azure Database for PostgreSQL, Azure Database for MySQL, Azure Key Vault. That's a
That's
huge
huge.
win on its own right
That's
there.
oh my God.
Huge. Azure Logic
That's another
Apps.
one.
That's amazing, right? Like the heavy hitters here. And then the encoding feature of Azure Media Services is now also available. So, as you know, if you've ever uploaded anything to a video site and you're encoding that media, or it says processing or something like that, that's what it's doing, is doing that encoding. And to have that service now included in the free tier, well, you think about the different free services with Kubernetes, with Key Vault, let's say MySQL, and now encoding Azure Media Services. Well, I think you have all the tools right there to build a free media site right there.
It's not only that. It Yes, you have. But what's impressed me the most is Azure Key Vault, right?
Isn't that
It's
amazing at the
it's a
free
free
tier?
tier. You have access to Azure Key Vault. How amazing is that? Because we usually have always been using those tools that they are still free, but you can use on your laptop, for example, or desktop to to store
Yep.
keys. Now I can use Azure. That I don't care where I'm coming from. I can use that, and I can have those keys into my free tier, right? Not paying for anything like that, and all of that. The other one, Logic Apps. This is huge.
That one's
That one is
amazing. Actually, I
amazing
can't believe they
because
put that one in.
Logic Apps is where you have your, and this is going directly to our hearts, right? Is where you have all the power of automation on Sentinel. So
Exactly.
it's where you
Yeah.
have all of those. What is the name now? Is me missing the name? All of those playbooks.
So yeah, so there's 2 tools now. So there's automation
Yeah,
rules and the playbooks that we can trigger from the analytics
yeah.
rules, and this is part of that whole automation flow. And like you combine Logic App with Key Vault, right? So imagine you want to, let's say from Sentinel, you're triggered on a rule, you want to document it, you have a secure storage account, you retrieve your key as part of your Logic App, capture that potentially confidential data that's been triggered from Sentinel, and you save a subset of it or something like that for analysis, review by a human, let's say, later on. So now that's all available in the free tier and on your free account. So you can utilize a lot of that. Now, Sentinel is a paid tool. I should, draw a little bit of a line there, right? There's a lot of parts of Sentinel that are free, and I'm pretty sure, Marcos, can you light up Sentinel as part of your free account in that first 12 months? Is it like part of your trial, or not 12 months? I'm saying it wrong. 120
I don't
days.
think it's possible because I have to test it because Sentinel it's always going through the log analytics service, right? But the
Yeah,
log
and
analytics
it's made
service,
to build a lot of data,
yes, the
right?
log
Yeah.
analytics service, you have a free version. But when you spawn up, in this case, Sentinel, it doesn't allow you to choose what is your log analytics service. Is spun up their own log analytics service that is not the free tier, but is the pay as you go tier. That's why is the
Yeah, and
cost.
it's linked with the
Yes,
Sentinel
is the
workspace.
Sentinel
Yep, you're right.
dedicated workspace. So that is the part that I think it will be. But man, if they make that possibility of Azure Sentinel just for me and you demonstrate that and not paying,
Oh, Right? That would be amazing.
That
So there's the
will be like
idea.
Christmas in June.
You know what? As soon as it was in preview, I would immediately start testing it, because that's like the number one ask from my
Yeah.
clients right
And
now
it's not only that.
is
And now you
Sentinel.
have
Yeah.
Sentinel with the free tier, right? And then we will have the logical app, so we can create playbooks for simple things, right? On Sentinel.
Yeah.
And man, it's with associated with key vault, associated with all of those things that you have as now, and especially when you have the association of 365, for example. Imagine this: 365 that is free on Sentinel, right? When you send in
hmm
365 to Sentinel is free. Now you have all of this, so you can associate a lot of automation, okay, on Sentinel, because Logic Apps is free. I don't think it's all the Logic Apps, but at least you will have something that is free that you can use, right? And it's almost a dream come true, my friend. Let's see.
It
Let's see if
is.
Microsoft doesn't
Yeah, like
surprise us, because I know that they are listening. They must be.
that would be amazing. Yeah, if somebody can take that little bit of a tidbit and run with it, that's I between the two of us, we would be deploying dozens of Sentinel instances
Thousands,
pretty
my friend. The
quickly
sky is the
with
limit.
customers. Well, we could automate it
Yeah,
a little bit,
with
but
logical apps, correct?
with the logic apps, yeah, we'll use the logic apps to automate building of other
Exactly.
logic apps. Hmm.
Mm,
Kind of a little bit of a HAL
exactly.
situation there. We could get into some trouble.
But
Sorry, Hal.
I think it's time to just thank you to everyone, and thank you, Andrew, for making this possible on this very busy week with this awesome um, climate, at least in Alberta, or southern Alberta, for us, and making here. So to you that you are listening, if you are new to the channel and if you like what you hear so far, please don't forget to subscribe. Smash that like button again. Leave in comments. Spread the love. If you think that this is good for you and for your colleagues, don't forget to share. You are allowed. We'll give you officially the permission to share as many times as you want it.
There's no DMCA
No, there
restrictions on
is.
this show. It's open
Exactly.
source
It's
for
open
everybody.
source. So please share, and let us know what you think. And once again, Andrew, thank you so much. Is always a fun moment to have this podcast with you, my friend.
I really appreciate it. And of course, thank you again to our viewers and listeners. We do this for
Exactly.
you. And thank you so much for joining us.
So I hope I can see you next week, and it's bye for now.